Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the session. I am Gejo. I have with me GP. We are going to talk about AILET. Now, when we have already done sessions on AILET, you can find GP strategy session on AILET in our YouTube channel. Siddharth recently talked about what are the do's and don'ts with respect to AILET. So we don't want to cover those aspects that we already covered, but we want to address a few things given the fact that CLAT happened and your AILET is important examination. We just want to ensure that when you enter the examination hall in the last few days, the kind of attitude, the kind of prep level that you need to do, need to have to be able to do well in this test. So the first thing I want to start off with GP is that
Mhm.
the clat happened, right?
Right.
Somebody would have a good experience, bad experience, ugly experience, but most of the feedback I've been hearing is that GK is like a crazy thing.
Yeah.
But then I've also heard GP is lot many students are getting affected by it and even
Mhm.
starting to ask questions like, okay, what should I do now for GK? I didn't do well in CLAT. What do you do now? So, what is your take on that aspect, GP?
Okay. Okay. The way I look at it is 90% of the students would be feeling I could have done better. I have not done as well as I prepared for. That is likely to be the feeling for majority of the students. Okay. And to those 90% of the students, I would like to say first thing is the paper is done and dusted. Forget about it. Yes, GK was a surprise this year, but something or the other will be a surprise every year. And it was a surprise for everyone. I'm sure many people while doing G code have realized that it's not going as well as I wanted to. The ones who did not panic are the ones who would have still done well. The ones who panicked, oh shit, I'm not going to get a good score in GK or as good as I wanted, and hence would have messed up their paper. Okay. Now whether you did well or whether you did not do well, the fact is it is over. There's nothing you can do about it. It is fresh innings all over again. Now it is a fresh start that you have to take. You have to say, okay, that innings was done, dusted, over. Now let me look at AILET afresh and focus on it. If you keep thinking about the previous paper, you're only going to mess up with the next one. So stop thinking and focus on the new one is all I would say, irrespective of the fact that you did well or you did not do well. In fact, if you did not do well, all the more important for you to forget about the past and look at the future.
Yeah, so I think that we have done our work. Let consortium do their work. Why are we getting involved in their work now in terms of what scores? And so that's sort of very important. Thank you, GP. I also to talk about the don't. I will add to what GP is saying in terms of don't take any. Uh, so don't try and find out learnings from CLAT, right? Don't I'm sure that the only thing that you have is that irrespective of whatever the test, you have to keep your cool because you never know what level of difficulty is going to be, which section is going to trouble you, which section is going to be easy. You never know. And whatever is the situation that you are going to face or you have faced, the situation that everybody faced. So if you keep that in mind, just go with a fresh bend of mind. uh, so the another thing is to look at when they're moving from a CLAT preparation and towards a preparation for the AILET. As you know, AILET this time changed the pattern. GP, they have English now 50 questions, general knowledge and current affairs 30 questions, logical reasoning 70. Though they have mentioned legal reasoning questions might be there, so they have mentioned. So when you look at this paper, GP, from the CLAT, do you think is there any they have to do something vastly different, or what's your take on that?
Frankly, no, nothing different to be done with respect to IELTS. Okay? English is the same. It has always been the same. If you look at the past papers of IELTS, the only issue would be in CLAT you had reading comprehension. Here you would have vocabulary, fill in the blanks, synonyms, antonyms, analogies, etc. Also grammar. So to that extent you may need to do a little bit, but nothing much to be done. As far as logical reasoning is concerned and legal is concerned, I would say what you have done for CLAT is more than what you need for IELTS. You may still want to go through the past papers of AILET, but beyond that, I wouldn't be worried about this particular section. And while there may or may not be question of legal reasoning, I would say legal reasoning, the principal fact questions are likely to be there in the paper, given that it is AILET or NLU Delhi who's doing it, because that's what they have always done. And they have not specifically said this will not be there. So I would assume it is there, and that to me is going to be to the advantage of most of the students. The good thing is, while preparing for CLAT, they have got hopefully used to picking out the principle and not being only. So if the principal is given, great, your task becomes easy. If principal is not given, picking out the principal becomes the most important task. So to that extent, given that IELTS has a tendency of giving principal fact kind of question, I think this is likely to be a little more comfortable. The only thing I would say with respect to IELTS is, in the past, legal reasoning questions have been fairly lengthy. So just be careful that you don't spend too much time in those lengthy questions. Whether it is logic or legal does not matter to me. To me, a question which is half a page long is not worth attempting as far as the paper is concerned.
There are a few things I would want to add on to what GP is saying. Is that when you look at the AILET paper of the past, right? Like for example, let's look at the AILET paper, the logical reasoning section of AILET. Now you have two kinds of question: analytical reasoning, and then you have these verbal reasoning. Verbal reasoning includes statement assumptions, statement conclusions, strong weak arguments, critical reasoning questions. Analytical reasoning will include series, sequence, coding, decoding, their group set, and everything, right? When you look at the paper from 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, about 70-75% of the paper were analytical reasoning, and about
Right.
25 to 30% were critical reasoning. But when you look at 2021, it was exactly the opposite. Now, if I look at legal reasoning, they had questions which were based on fact principle. So when you look at 2017 paper, 33% is based on fact principle, and the rest of them were based on knowledge. But when I look at 2021 paper, it is exactly the opposite. And you have English. There is 2017, 2018 did not even have reading comprehension passage. 2019 had couple of them. 2020, 2020 had one of them. In 2018 paper, we had more focus on grammar. 2021 paper had more focus on vocabulary. So trying to figure out what is AILET as a paper in terms of specific test is going to be kind of difficult. But like what GP said, when you look at English, it is at the end of the day vocabulary, grammar, reading comedy, something that you're comfortable with. Legal reasoning you have done. I'm guessing that it'll still be there. I will agree to what GP is saying. And it's a question of, I believe, GP, the logical reasoning, they will probably have to go back and revise some of those analytical reasoning questions, which was not there. I think that, glad. I think
Jijo,
that.
while they may need to, I am along with you in this paper that based on last year, I think they are going towards CLAT kind of a paper,
Okay.
which means less of maths, which is why maths has been removed, and less of mathematical reasoning. So analytical reasoning last year, as you rightly said, was one fourth, and 75% was verbal. I think that is what they'll continue with. Okay, so I would say yes, you will need to revise the analytical reasoning, but don't be too worried about it based on last year and the fact that they have changed the pattern to make reasoning one huge omnibus section is likely to be reasoning which is similar to what we have seen in CLAT, or it could be strength and weaken argument and those kind of things. Critical reasoning questions is what I would be banking upon in the paper.
Yeah. One thing, let's under the GK. What I've seen, GP, is that the past 5 year, maybe in barring 2020, but the past other years, but the past 5 years, almost 80%, 90% of questions were from current affairs. And it's, maybe in 2020 about 60%. Otherwise, it's current affairs. Should kids have to worry about static GK? And there is a worry, GP. They have to study, worry
See,
about
Gijo, my
those.
point is in these few days, how much of static GK can you mug
Correct.
up?
Correct.
There's nothing much you can do. And while we have always been clear, both CLAT and IELTS look more at current affairs, it is static cannot be ruled out. So whatever static you have done in the past is what you will go ahead with. Even in CLAT, if you look at last 2-3 years papers with the new pattern also, on a passage, out of 5 questions, 3 to 4 would be current, 1 to 2 would be static. So static was always there. I would not say it is not required, but was in context to something. And the same thing I will say is true here also. Whatever static you have done, or let me extend that further and say, whatever GK you have done for CLAT is more than enough for what you need for IELTS. Nothing extra needs to be done. Yes, you can keep revising, you can add to that, but remember, um, GK of this month is not going to be useful for you. I will go back to what we have always said, that 15th May and prior to that is what you need to be looking for as far as GK is concerned. So you could revise as much as you want.
GP, you always said this is the best year to take AILET. This is not the first time I'm hearing. I've heard it many times. And what is your logic when you say this is the best time to take AILET?
Yeah, so you see, if you look at the past, whenever pattern changes across exams, I'm not looking at CLAT, IELT only, I am looking at the first time CLAT became online. The first time, no, not online. Sorry, the first time the CLAT came in, and when you look at CAT, NMAT, XLRE, whenever the pattern change happened, even UPSC, the paper is easy. Okay, that's the first thing I have noticed. I would say this is true in maybe 8 to 9 out of 10 cases, 85 to 90% of time. This is what happens. A change in pattern leads to easier paper, first of all, because even the people who are setting the paper are trying to experiment and they don't want to make it unusually difficult. That's the first thing. Second thing I've seen is whenever there's a pattern change, people tend to freeze. They start thinking all the worst kind of possible scenarios. Oh shit, that means the paper is going to be difficult. This is going to happen to me only. They forget that everyone is going the same boat. And hence they start panicking. Even if an easy paper comes in a change pattern year, you will find they will panic. It's the easy question, they start thinking, shit, how can the question be so easy? And they start analyzing and ultimately get confused and leave the question or mark a wrong answer. So in the change pattern year, the ones who do well are the ones who don't panic. Okay? And that to me is the 10% of the students. Those 5%, 10%, max of 15 to 20% of the students is what we're looking at. I'll go with 10%. If you don't panic, if you stick to the basics as we always say, which means easy question, do it, difficult question, leave it, you will not have a problem. If you start attributing motives to the question, to the paper or the examiner, then you'll have a problem. Okay? Just treat it like any other paper. Ignore the fact that the pattern has changed.
So basically, you are saying is that this is the best year for those set of students who are willing to keep things very simple.
Yes.
Right. You read the question. If you can solve it, you solve it. If you can't solve it, leave it. If you can solve it, decide can I solve it within the time, or make a good decision. Keep on moving and never get stuck in a question paper.
Yeah.
What?
In a change, just to add, in a change pattern, the tendency of people to panic, or tendency of students to panic is much higher than a normal year. And which is why
Right.
those who don't panic typically do well.
So, what is your advice to students? Now, so some of
Nothing.
them have come from experience of CLAT, and I've spoken to a few of them who did not sort of make the good decision of knowing that whatever is the situation they are in is a situation at all. But what would be sort of your advice, GP, in terms of how
It would be the same as it was for CLAT or any other paper so close to the exam. Yeah, in the next few days, yes, revise and do everything. But once you're in the inside the examination hall, as I always say, scan the paper just to get an idea what the paper is and get down to doing questions. Okay, and the basics don't change. It's like if you're playing cricket, you're a batsman. The basics don't change. If it's a easy, it's a simple ball. It's something to be hit. Please hit it. If it is a difficult ball, defend it. If it's outside the off stump, don't just flash your bat. The basics don't change, and that is what I want students to always remember, irrespective of what the paper is, irrespective of what kind of pitch you're playing on. You have to make sure you are playing the right kind of balls and you're leaving the right kind of balls. In our language, that would mean questions you can solve, as you said, please attempt them. Question which you can't solve, leave them. The question where you get confused, take a call whether you want to mark or make you move on. But don't waste time. Remember, it's a 90-minute paper. It is almost like a T20. Okay, this will not give you time to come back again. Not that CLAT gives you time, but CLAT is a little more relaxed. 150 questions odd in 120 minutes is much better than 120. 150 minutes and sorry, how much is 150 question in 90 minutes?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yes. So I got confused with that part. So just relax. And which is why it is much more important in IELTS not to waste time at all, because time is going to be much shorter out here. Remember, if CLAT you could not finish this paper, the chance of finishing are much lower. So be willing to leave questions.
Exactly. I think this is the attitude that you must have when you enter the examination hall. Blank, right? There is no sort of set target in mind,
Yeah.
no preconceived ideas in mind. And because if you look at even AILET in the previous year, 2017, 89, 2018, 71, 2019, 72, 2020, 75, 2021, 100. These were the cutoffs. And I used to know, I knew a time when cutoff used to be 100 and 110 also. So
Yeah.
there is no pre-decided cutoff. You're entering the room. The second thing is that when you open the paper, like GP told you to scan it, whatever you see, that is what is everybody is seeing.
mm,
right? So you don't have to now think and worry about, oh my goodness, what is this? There is no surprise.
mm,
There is no surprise. How can they be surprised when everybody is facing the same thing? Who is getting surprised here?
mm. And
So,
Jijo,
so
when
uh-huh,
just a minute,
uh,
when you're scanning the paper, just focus on the legal section. English would be the same, GK
correct.
will be the same. You
Hmm,
just need to look at not the legal, the reasoning, the logical reasoning section. What is the composition of that section is the only thing you need to check.
correct.
And when you're doing that, also be on the lookout for the length of the question. Okay, so you get an idea whether it is lengthy, short, or whatever. And I would say make sure you complete the English section. Given IELTS track record, English section, if you can't come, you should more or less be able to complete it. Yes, there will be those few couple of questions which are vocabulary, grammar oriented, which you don't know, leave it. But by and large, English section you have to complete. Yeah,
Yeah. One thing that is true, GP. When it comes to AILET, what is absolutely important is that you don't just go solving the question for the order in which it is given to you, especially logical reasoning. Pick up
yeah,
those ones that you can make decisions quicker, right? And then push towards the end the one you believe it's going to take a lot of time. Even though let's say you like legal reasoning a lot, if the fact principle question that one and a half two pages long,
mhm,
then it makes sense to leave it towards the end. So be
yeah.
sensible, and I'm sure that you guys will do well.
Mm.
Yeah.
And actually, 18, 1920 especially, I remember the length of the question in IELTS was fairly high for legal reasoning. Okay, it was like saying 14 pages for 11 questions or something like that, or 11 pages for, no, it was 11 pages for 14 questions, I think in 2019. So that is why you need to be clear. It does not matter whether it is a legal question or a logic question or English question or a GK question. My job is to do as many questions as possible. So if there's a question which is going to take me a minute or minute and a half to read, it is not even worth attempting. Okay? It might be a very easy question, but getting 1 mark in 2 minutes is not acceptable to me. If you look at the past, okay, from a low of last 4 5 years, from a low of about 70 72 marks to 100 marks. Let me take a mean figure of 90 marks. So you need to get 0.75 marks every 1 minute. Okay, so if a question is going to take you 1.5 to 2 minutes to solve and give the answer, it is not worth attempting. Please remember that. I would target 1 minute. I would keep this as something in my mind. Is a question going to take me 1.5 minute plus? Leave it. Come back to it later if you have time, and I can assure you, you'll never have time.
Yeah. So as always, the only thing that you guys have to do is to keep the strategy, keep everything simple, have the right attitude, forget about what happened in the past. It's a new day, and once you enter the examination hall, don't have any preconceived notion. Just do ensure that you make decision like what GP said on every question and make sensible decision. And I'm sure that you'll be able to give your very best for AILET.
Yeah. Yes, and forget about all kind of target scores. Forget that there was a target score of 70, 72, 75, 100, 90. Forget about it. Target score is what we discuss after the paper, not before the paper.
All right. Thank you and all the best, guys.
Okay, bye. All the best.